Hello, universe. Today we're going to be learning how to make this effect. And if you don't want to learn how to make it, wow, do I have some great news. But why did you click on the video? Anyways, great news. It's free. Right now, you can go download it on my Ko-Fi page or Coffee page. I don't know how you pronounce it. I don't sign you up for a newsletter. I don't steal any information outside of your IP address. You can go download it for free right now. But if you are looking to get more comfortable inside of Fusion and looking to build out some tools on your own, wow, do I have even better news, because we're going to walk through how to make this on your own. This is a good, I would say, intermediate level tutorial, because the inspiration for this effect comes from a gentleman by the name of Matthew Voice. I was scrolling Behance the other day and I saw this breakdown of this old school Macintosh animation. I thought it was super cool, and one of the primary graphics used here is these elongated shadows that come from a point of origin. So the way that I'm going to approach building out this effect is I like to work vertically. Just something about the elongation of the nodes makes me happy when we're working from top to bottom. So I'm going to start at top, and then we're going to start building our chain sequence going down. So if we're going to be building out a shadow, what we need to do is have it go underneath our text here, which means that we will need to merge it behind the text. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to alt click on our pipeline here to create a pipe router. Do you have to use a pipe router? No, but I tend to find it nice and handy when I'm building out tools. Now, I'm not 100% certain this is actually the best workflow for this effect. So if I do have any Fusion savants still watching this video at this point, feel free to chime in, because I'm curious if there's a way to improve this. But the key for this effect, and I want to give a quick shout out to Elliptic Curves, who's a member of the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, join it. Make smart decisions this year. And Elliptic said, why don't you try using a zoom blur? So that's what we did. So I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit, and I'm going to add in a zoom blur. Boop. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the output of our pipe router into the yellow input of our zoom blur, the primary input. There's going to be two things that we need to change on our zoom blur. One is the center position. So if I go to our center position here, for the purpose of this effect, I like to originate from the bottom. So I'm going to drag it off screen here. Do you have to go here? No, of course not. But the main thing that we're going to want to do is, instead of having a positive zoom amount, we're going to want to be negative. And in fact, we want to be really negative, because the goal is to have these lines actually touch our origin. So the happy number that we found was -1.3. And that's pretty close. It's not quite there. You can always mess around with this to improve results. But if I drag our center position down just a little bit, I can get those points to touch the bottom. Now, if I were to take my zoom blur and connect it to the background here, so that we've merged it behind our text and re-preview the media out, you can see the idea here, but we're pretty far off from having anything convincing of what we eventually want. So there's going to be one node that we use in particular that is kind of the key for this effect to work, and it's called a bitmap node. Bitmap nodes are very powerful for a lot of different reasons, but the big one is this slider over here on the right. This is our threshold slider. So what I would like you to do with the bitmap node is go ahead and put it after our zoom blur, and just double check that the zoom blur is feeding into the yellow input of the bitmap node. Now, if I hit 2 to preview our bitmap node, oh, we're in black and white land. If you're unfamiliar with this node, what it's doing is it's not just desaturating our image. So this isn't like a gradient map. What a bitmap node does is it's looking at all the values that you're putting into it, and it's trying to map it on a scale of, you could think it from 0 to 1. So as another example, if I were to add in a bitmap node over to the side here, and let's say I go to my text node, and I'm just going to change the shading mode to be a gradient. We're just going to pick a couple random colors real quick, just for the purpose of this demonstration. And I feed that into this bitmap node here. What you're seeing isn't just a desaturated version of our text. We're seeing all the areas that are opaque versus transparent. And that's because the channel that the bitmap is looking at is the alpha, or the transparency you could think of. If I were to change this to the red mode, oh, well, remember our text gradient has red at the bottom here, blue at the top. So when I go to the bitmap, you can see that we have stronger red influence on the bottom. Same with the blue, inverse. So bitmaps are really good at just saying yes or no. Yes, this exists. No, this doesn't exist. And if I go back and view the, oh, let me reset our color here real quick. If I go back and review the bitmap node for our zoom blur, we're seeing the yeses and nos of that zoom blur. The cool thing with bitmap nodes is we have these threshold sliders here that tell us what is yeses and what is nos. So we can be a bit more forgiving with what exactly it views as a yes or a no. So what I'm going to do is we're going to be pretty aggressive with our thresholds. And in fact, we're going to do it 2 times. So for our first bitmap node after the zoom blur, I'm just going to bring in the upper threshold as to what is acceptable as a yes and cram it in. And we do not have to be super exact here. I'm just going to go with, we'll make a nice even number. I'll go with 0.2. And now hopefully you can start to see how this effect is starting to form. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to stack the bitmap. So you can either add in a new one or just copy this one, paste it down to the line, and make sure that it's set to the yellow input. We do not want the blue input. We don't want a masking input. We want the primary image input. Fit 2 on this bitmap. Oh, now we're getting really close to the shape that we'd like. Again, I do ask if there are any Fusion people still watching the video at this point to provide some input if you have some good ideas. Because what I ended up having to do to get this to look somewhat accurate is I took this upper threshold and I just smashed it in. And it's at this stage we have full solid lines for our radial shadow. If I do zoom in though, you can see we have some artifacting where we're not perfectly smooth. I could not find a good solution to this. I did mess around with some blur tools and some other options to try to smooth it. I couldn't find a good solution, but I do think it looks semi-good. Now you can increase this if you feel like that's too aggressive, but I'm gonna go with a nice 0.005. There we go. The final 2 steps are to do what we talked about earlier and feed this into our background node. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in a background node. And then I'm going to take the output of our bitmap and feed it into the mask input of our background. Boop. And then I'll take the background output and feed it into our merge node here. Now, if I preview our media out by pressing 2, voila. This is the foundation of the effect. There are a couple of nuanced things that we can do to improve it. One is to do what we talked about earlier and add in an erode and dilate node. When we add in this node, we can increase the size or decrease the size of our shadow, giving you a little bit more control with how spread out it is. 2, we can actually reorganize our chain here so that it fits within a happy little structure. So I can actually move our merge node here, reconnect this, and we go ahead and flip our inputs here by hitting Control T. So now we have an actual cluster of nodes to work with. As far as controlling this effect, we have a couple of important settings. One is the zoom blur. So I can increase this to decrease the length. We also have our center position that we can move around to give us some different effects. And on our second bitmap node, there's a couple of settings that make this really nice. So you can go ahead, play with the soft edge to spread it out. And the level is going to act as your opacity for this effect. We can also go to that background node and play around with the color to give you different shadows. And because we have a full background node here, you could always make this some kind of a gradient. Now, the last step that I would do is I would take these nodes and turn it into a macro. So here you go. This is the final product that I have here. So if I were to delete these guys and connect my node, bang, we have the effect. So how do you create a macro? Well, I use Asher Roland's Macro Creator. It makes the macro creation process a lot easier. I know Matt McCool now has a macro creator tool that looks really handy, and Patrick Sterling is also working on his macro creation tool. If you don't want to download any products from another DaVinci Resolve creator, why? If your answer is just because, well, here's another video on how to create macros the old school way. Again, the tool is free right now up in the shop if you want to go give it a download. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.